Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Steel Sharpens Steel, our Friday Roundup edition. We hope that you tuned in on Wednesday to follow our commentary on the Veep debate. But today, we have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. And first up is the insanity that is spewing forth from the White House immediately following that Wednesday debate where Kamala Harris was scored at the winner with a 59% to a 38% for Pence. Trump decided to call in to his favorite network, Fox, and made a 1 hour unhinged stream of consciousness diatribe in which he called Kamala Harris a monster and a communist. I'm going to go to Sharon Lettman, our senior female correspondent on the panel. Sharon, what do you have to say about this most recent state of events with Donald Trump?
I'm just trying to understand. Did you just call me old? I'm just trying
our
to.
Senior female.
I don't get that. I don't get that.
Steel
Joy, you need to send me a driver's license after this show, okay? So, first of all, I can't believe you're starting with me to talk about the cuckoo bird. But Donald Trump is almost at, Baker's Act level. And I told y'all earlier in our private conversations that I think that he just has a death wish. But he is breaking all rules, and the need to try to, it's not just about calling Kamala a monster. The communist thing is just total foolishness. But he also sent out the dog whistle. Joe will be dead in 2 months. So, all of his theatrics, we're just getting started. The whole race baiting, there's going to be a woman who's black, one heartbeat away from the presidency. He's going to break every possible rule over the next 3.5 weeks. So we need to just, hold on. Over politicizing how he's always disrespectful to women and always trying to just deface women of color in particular to try to drive home in all of his metaphors and not so tactful zings. He's a monster. He's the monster. And he's just a despicable human being. And only person going to take care of him is the judge. Judgment Day. Good evening.
Tom, you're on mute.
Tom, you're on mute.
Got it. One of the things that came out after that interview was his interview with Sean Hannity. And I don't know if the rest of you listened to any excerpts from that interview, but there was a lot of and coughing and long pauses where it seemed as though someone had yet to catch their breath. He did not seem like a person who was ready to run out onto the campaign trail as early as tomorrow, which his personal physician, Conley, has said is a possibility. Meanwhile, he has canceled on doing a virtual debate with Joe Biden because he says it was a waste of time. Chuck, looking at some of the behavior, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to talk about Steve Schmidt's response. What do you think is going on with the president, given that we know that the steroids and some of the treatments that he have, according to physicians, can have effects that are mentally incapacitating?
No doubt. I can speak to that in another capacity, too. Even though I am a relatively healthy male, I have suffered, as many of you know, from asthma since I was about two years old. It hasn't prevented me from being able to enjoy many things in life, sports and band and things of that nature, and even walking a lot now. But I can tell you that I have a very keen ear for people with respiratory issues. And so when I listened to excerpts from the Sean Hannity interview last night, coupled with what we talked about the other day after the vice presidential debate, the president sounds not so well to me, not just with the coughing, but the intermittent stops, the throat clearing, the just pauses. I really realized, I said, this guy is really not well. And what we've learned from many of our medical doctors is that generally those steroids will provide you with an oomph, so to speak. It can give you a boost, make you seem a lot better. But again, the tale of the tape is, again, when he climbed those stairs last week and did the what people are calling jokingly the Covita moment, taken after Evita Perón's balcony speech from the early 1950s. When I listened to him talk, you could hear it and you can see it almost like he's an asthmatic. So this is one of those diseases that you can't just whisk away in as much as I think that he would like to. And even though I kind of chuckled a little bit when he said he was a fine physical specimen earlier today, I was like, well, I guess I could say the same thing, despite my comorbidities also. But again, at the same point, heck, I've been walking for 3 months. I'm not sure Trump could walk with me those 5-6 miles a day out there and not get winded. And so with that, again, I don't wish any ill will on the president. I wish for Joe Biden to win the race in the next few weeks, but I'm not going to speak anything untoward. Now, separately, you asked me, Tom, about Steve Schmidt's clapback.
Oh, boy.
It was brutal. It reminded me of the old Roberta Flack song, Killing Me Softly. Well, this was killing Trump loudly in words. And what happened, for those who are not aware of it, Steve Schmidt is a longtime Republican operative. He was born in 1970, but he was a wonderkin back in the 1990s and early 2000s. He rose all the way to being the campaign chair for John McCain back in 2008. He worked on George W. Bush's campaign. So this is not a Johnny-come-lately Republican. This is someone who definitely has paid his dues over time. And he is one of the leaders of a group called the Lincoln Project. And what that group is a number of Republicans as well as a number of conservatives who might not be registered Republicans, but they have Republican leanings, who simply are the extension of what we heard in 2016 as the Never Trumpers. Well, they are the ones that are responsible for some of the ads that you're seeing across the country that are really disparaging the president. And Schmidt went in because President Trump shot some what many people would call shade his way earlier this week, and it was pretty brutal. One paragraph I'll read is he told to the president, "You've never beaten me at anything. This is our first dance. Did you like Covita? We are so much better at this than your team of crooks, wife beaters, degenerates, weirdos, and losers." And I just wanted to highlight that paragraph. Now, there's about 10 more paragraphs that were out on Twitter, and it was brutal. Talked about everything but the president's mother, so to speak, literally. And with that in mind, I know some people will say, well, hey, that wasn't so kind of Steve Schmidt, and we deserve better. But the problem I see from that is so many of Donald Trump's supporters don't ever hold him to the same standard that they hold everyone else. They can tell you where Joe Biden has erred. They can tell you where Kamala Harris hasn't necessarily been nice. They can tell you that Steve Schmidt wrote things that are beneath whatever, but they never talk about the fact that when Trump throws these barbs at people and he makes negative comments like he made about Schmidt, when somebody balls their rhetorical fist up and throws a punch back and it makes him look weak, his supporters don't want to hear that. They get very angry and frustrated at the person who is responding, as opposed to being frustrated at the person who has allowed our politics to devolve to name calling and clapbacks and things that 20 years ago I would have never imagined would happen in the public sphere.
Well, we have seen the fallout from his amazing diagnosis, which shook the entire world, I think. Many other world leaders have been infected with COVID. They have all come through. But that the president of the United States, who not only had ranged from calling it a hoax to something that was going to miraculously disappear in April, to saying that hydrochloroquine, which he was not administered during his time in Walter Reed, and all these other things, a hoax and trying to minimize it. And now he's chosen by God and a fine physical specimen. Although I venture to say that Savage Fenty would not be using him as a model, even though they have expanded into the big boy section of modeling. Hello, I'm available, Rihanna. But we are still dealing with the fallout of this little super spreader event. This is the infamous now Rose Garden ceremony. And in this picture are the people who at the time had been designated as positive. So obviously the president and the first lady, Kellyanne Conway, came days later. Senators Mike Lee and Tom Tillis, both on the Judiciary Committee, even though Tom Tillis is wearing a mask, although Mike Lee is not. Kayleigh McEnany, of course, John Jenkins, the president of Notre Dame, Greg Laurie, and Chris Christie. Now, interestingly, we haven't heard a lot from Chris Christie since he self-admitted with symptoms. He is morbidly obese, and he was in the debate prep unmasked, as he said. He also was there to say that even though the Rose Garden ceremony was in open air at the White House, the reception was not. And since the reception was not, and nobody was wearing masks in the reception, that possibly also was a place in which people could have become infected. And it's even spilled out to smaller down ticket races. Lindsey Graham was scheduled to have his second debate with Jamie Harrison, and Jamie Harrison insisted that both candidates take a COVID test since Lindsey Graham has been in contact with the president. Lindsey Graham declined. And though he's trying to put the onus on Jamie Harrison for pulling out, there's no one in America right now who, having been in the orbit of the president, shouldn't be willing to take a COVID-19 test. Some 34 persons in his sphere have now been diagnosed with the disease. Joy, what do you think about all of the fallout and how it's going to play in the next couple of weeks? Obviously, the debates are open right now. It is uncertain as to whether or not we are going to have either of the remaining debates, although the Trump campaign has suggested pushing to the 22nd for the town hall and then having the third debate on the 29th.
Okay, so here's the problem. Everyone that is riding this Trump train, for lack of an easy way to sum that up, every one of them has talked about it being a hoax, saying that we're handling it well. No other nation has done as well as we have. Our president is strong, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then president is down. Everybody around him is down. And so now anyone that has been riding this train with him, when they go into a debate, the botching of the handling of COVID is undebatable. You see what I mean? You can't spin your way out of this, especially if you come on stage coughing. And my thing for Lindsey Graham, as they love to say, if you don't have anything to hide, why not take the test?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, I think one of the things that was interesting, you talked about debates and you talked about COVID, and although Vice President Pence has tested negative before the debate, we haven't heard as much after the debate. There were lots of questions about a discoloration in his eye that may have been pink eye. What?
It looked like he had pink eye.
It looked like he had pink eye to me. And immediately the internets went into overdrive to tell us everything that we possibly needed to know about Pence and his best black friend. Let's take a look. So this first graphic with the young man, this is a Halloween outfit with the fly attached to a Pence-esque wig. We have a clip from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where Leonardo DiCaprio's character is pointing at the television putatively at the fly that is sitting on his head. The Biden-Harris campaign went into overdrive and immediately pushed out a fly swatter product that says, "Fly will vote," instead of "I will vote." Biden was out during the actual debate with this picture that he posted, holding a very long fly swatter, and it's orange, interestingly enough. They put Ruth Bader Ginsburg into the mix, saying that she sent the fly. And one of my favorite memes since I have been watching Cobra Kai is Mr. Miyagi famously trying to catch the fly. We are now going to go to an interview with the fly. So we're gonna cut to that right away. And while we're getting the fly, sometimes it's hard to get those connections together. We want to take a moment to talk about another major piece of news that happened today. Now we're up to 6 million votes that have been cast. These are unprecedented numbers, and this is something that has got to be in the president's craw, because he is already concerned about the deficit that he has perceived, especially between mail-in ballots. The Democratic Party was pushing mail-in ballots. We on this panel have said in-person voting is definitely preferable. So we're going to try to see if this is the thing that is really driving his concern, because we do think that there are a lot of people who are taking advantage of the early voting, hopefully to drive up the margins so that on election day proper, we actually do see that we do have a victor that everyone can rally around. Do we have the fly ready? We do have the fly. Okay, great. So we did want to ask a couple of questions. First off, you were the unexpected star of these debates. And so what we want to know is, what drew you to Mike Pence?
That is a really good question. I really appreciate it. First off, thank you for having me here on your show. Normally flies don't live this long, but I do believe that some of the chemicals I may have landed in his head have allowed me to be here tonight, this Friday night. And I tell you what drew me to that head of hair is it smelled like home. It felt like things I was familiar with. And I flew in the room. And, I was looking for something to do, because I try to be involved in the political process, and I just homed in on it. I said, you know what? I know that. I've been there before, and it was a perfect place to land.
Well, flies do have extraordinarily olfactory capabilities, and it looks like you have some PPE on, which is very important. Some people have brought up the question as to why you did not. Oh, Fly Sean, thank you. I was going to ask you your name, Fly Sean. Some people have asked why you did not choose to land on Kamala Harris's hair, Senator Harris. Can you offer some insight as to why you stayed away from Kamala Harris?
Yes, look, bruh. I may have been born a week ago, but even I know you don't touch a black woman's hair. And
well, that's right.
There was no way I was going over there. I did fly past her, and she smelled like cocoa butter and ambition. And I was like, you know what? This is amazing. It's amazing. And it was beautiful to fly past her. But again, I had to go for the familiar. I had to go for a smell I recognize.
Well, that is true. And certainly there is no doubt that Michael Pence was full of your favorite meal. And I think he displayed that consistently throughout the debate. And with that, Flashawn, I want to thank you. I hope that the next few moments of your very short lifespan have showered you in enough internet glory that you can spread your wings and fly right to that big pile of Mike Pence in fly heaven. So we thank you for joining us, and we certainly do appreciate all that you have done to contribute to our discourse this evening. Do you have any last words?
I would like to encourage everyone. I wanted to use my newfound celebrity for good in our community. So please go to flywillvote.com. That's something I worked out with the Democratic Party. I get the residuals on that, but flywillvote.com. So go over there and make sure you register to vote, so we can so I don't have to go to the White House no more to get my food.
Well, we sure do appreciate that. We appreciate everything that you have done for us. And so we wish you all the best as you pull yourself together. And we are going to continue to move on with our next segment. But we, again, thank you for all that you have done. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have some other topics that we want to address today. A major story that hit this week was a proposed kidnapping scheme against sitting governor of Michigan, Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Let's take a look at the conspirators who have been arrested to date. I think you'll notice some similarities. So I count 10 people. All 10 of those people are men. All 10 of those people are unmelanated. Only 2 of them are beardless. And one of them looks like he's auditioning to be John Travolta's understudy in a revival of Grease in the Hartford Township summer stock version of that august musical. Compare those faces to the governor, who is looking like a solid badass in this leather jacket. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but when somebody threatens to kidnap me and you come back to the podium looking like a biker chick with your hair laid, and you've even got the sign language interpreter there in the background, she's telling everybody, hearing or not, that she is not here for it. What we got from the president, interestingly enough, was not consideration for avoiding the plot. What we did not get from the president was congratulations on still being able to resume your duties. Instead, we got Gretchen Whitmer is ungrateful and a terrible governor. Chuck, what would you expect from President Biden, who was addressing a similar scandal on someone who was a political opponent?
One of the things that I continue to struggle with in the modern era is this concept of people who feel aggrieved placing themselves into harm's way or stoking up resentment for others to go and place themselves into harm's way, and then crying victim when what ordinarily will happen in these types of situations occurs. So let's dial back to the presidential debate almost 2 weeks ago now. You have President Donald Trump, who was asked point blank, will you repudiate white supremacy? He would not on the debate stage. When he was asked about the Proud Boys specifically, which is one of a number of terrorist right-wing white groups in the United States of America, he claimed to have no knowledge of who the Proud Boys were, even though, again, he did. And yet at the same time, almost seamlessly, his comment was, what was it? Stand by and stand back and stand by, or something.
That's
to that
right.
To the issues with the Proud Boys. He wouldn't reject that. And the Proud Boys that same night put out memes and comments on Twitter and everywhere else. We hear you, Mr. President. We're standing by, we're standing down, or whatever it is that you want to call it. So fast forward a week, and now you have a situation where it is learned that a white right-wing group has been plotting to foment anarchy across the country, specifically targeting Gretchen Whitmer, governor of Michigan. And yet now, once that plan was foiled, you have the president coming back, making statements on Rush Limbaugh, on Sean Hannity, not in the press conference, not in the Rhodes Room, not in the Oval Office, but on conservative talk radio about how she should be happy that he has caught the people who are inspired by his words to foment anarchy. Therein lies the problem here. And I would expect any president, Republican or Democrat, to just condemn white supremacy and racism straight up. But we don't get that from the Trump Republicans, okay? These aren't the Republicans of even 8 years ago with Mitt Romney, 12 years ago with John McCain, where you would have been able to get Romney or George W. Bush or John McCain to unequivocally say, I do not support white supremacy. We do not need to go backwards. But for whatever reason, and I'm not sure what that is, this president has not been full-throated about it. And the only way I can conclude is that it's because he supports these types of organizations, even though once the rock is thrown and it's burst through the glass house and it's showing that he is complicit in that rock being thrown, then he wants to cry, well, no, I didn't have anything to do with that. I don't know these people. And therein lies the problem, Tom. I just, again, in an era in which we have had 3 or 4 years where every week it seems as if something else has happened where I'm like, I never thought I would see that. Here it is again. And I write about this quite a bit, and I'll say it again tonight. One of the issues I have in this country is that if you look at the history, the things that are going on now, what was has become again. This isn't new. one of the things that our white brothers and sisters do in this country, when they are upset about something, they will go to lawlessness. Forget all the Republican talking points at the convention about we want law and order. Sure, they want law and order if it's black people protesting, or even if it's groups of whites who are rioting on behalf of Black Lives Matter. But when it comes to them, they have nothing to say. There is no condemnation. You go to Fox News and it's still talking about Black Lives Matter and Antifa. They won't talk about this group of individuals who actually were actively talking about kidnapping, tasering, and the logical extension from that, which is potentially killing a sitting governor. And then you get this from Trump today and many of his followers, which is, well, she sassed the president and she's not doing, I'm like, how do you blame a governor for an attack on her? It defies logic. And I'm almost out of words in describing what it is I continue to hear and see.
I got words.
I got to take this a step further. Since Tom refuses to call on me. This was just straight up domestic terrorism. I mean, we need to call it on its face. What aggrieves me more than anything else, on top of everything Chuck says, is all of them white boys alive. Just like the white boy that walked down the street after shooting 2 people. We ain't got to have no guns. We ain't got to be plotting no kidnapping and blowing up bridges and all of that. That peacefulness that we always seem to come back, even in attempts to protest. These white boys, crackers, let me just be straight. These crackers are alive and sitting on my government dollars. And they, yes, sis McKendrick, they are domestic terrorists. And he even attempted to go after Black Lives Matter today. So what we're dealing with is not something we've experienced in our lifetime. Our ancestors have. From the 60s and back to slavery. This is the ruthlessness of the white patriarchal establishment that believes that this land is theirs. And not only that, anybody that empathizes with this country belongs to everyone are at stake and at risk, like the governor of Michigan. The challenge that I have with all of this is, what the fuck is this Congress doing? And all these Republicans that are on tickets in all these respective states, the entire U.S. Senate, I need you all to vote them out. Because when you put up that graphic from The Fly with Ruth Bader, I believe in a higher being. Okay, let's be clear. I believe Sister RBG is up there, her All Saints, okay, is taking care of all that is needed to be taken care of for people who are just God's enemies. This is as prophetic as it comes to me. And this is not something, I said it on the last show, and I'm going to say it again. After y'all vote, stay your asses in the house. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. They want to take each other out. They want to take out sympathizers until this government can control. Do you understand? The former director of the CIA is against Bush. See, I believe in B60. What is it? B60 what?
B613.
B613. I believe in all of that. Okay. And what I also believe in is George H.W. Bush when he was the director of the CIA. Now, he cleared the way for his son to be president, but he believed in government. Okay? Donald Trump does not believe in government. Donald Trump is a terrorist. And he is dog whistling to all these people to create havoc on this land simply for him to get reelected. He has no other agenda. His agenda is absolute power. He don't care about, he would rather our government establishment implode simply for his greed. See,
Joy,
I want to piggyback on that. You said he's doing all of this just to get reelected. He's doing all of this so it don't matter if he gets reelected. It doesn't matter, or he doesn't want it to matter what happens on November 3rd. And feasibly all these mail-in ballots. They're going to have to spend days counting those. He wants to have chaos, violence, bloodshed, particularly of people that he doesn't like, for that entire week, so that while he is still in office, because he will still technically be in office until, you know, the ballots are counted, etc., he can declare martial law. He can do whatever he wants. He can sign all kind of executive orders. And it doesn't matter if everything he signs and everything he makes up is just a bunch of lies by someone who doesn't have the power to do so. He's got pockets of malicious domestic terrorists all over the country, even in California, even in Idaho, even in Georgia, or wherever, you know, Black people may congregate. There is a militia about 100 miles away, just looking at them, just mad, just sitting on their porch, just waiting on the signal, because they've already gotten stand by.
Shit, they live around the corner from me.
Yeah, and I think
I don't know what you talk about. I can walk out my door and bump into a couple Trump signs.
And one of our viewers, John Thomas, actually reminded me that the Proud Boys comment wasn't his first foray into giving marching orders to terrorist organizations, because before that, he literally tweeted, #liberate Michigan. Liberate Michigan. And this because Governor Whitmer wanted to enforce mask mandates to slow the spread in her state. Let's be clear. After a slight dip in daily infections and deaths, we are back up knocking on 1,000 a day.
Yeah.
And 50,000 plus infections a day. The V-shaped recovery we're seeing is the recovery of the increase of COVID. It's not the economy. It's COVID that is rebounding. And as we're getting into flu season and everything else, I went to the CVS 2 days ago to get a prescription filled. The drive-through prescription line is now a COVID testing line.
I've been through it twice.
I had to get out of my car to go get my prescription because the normal drive-through is now dedicated to COVID. And that's CVS, one of the largest chains in the country. Chuck, take it.
Yeah. And Tom, what's crazy is down here in Florida, as Sharon will tell you, we have a governor, Ron DeSantis, who is a wannabe Trump in every way, shape, of the word. And yet he has really gone off the rails the last 2 weeks too. We are still within the top 5 of infections. And yet he has not only relaxed all restrictions with regards to restaurants and congregating, but he is also encouraging professional sports teams, as well as the colleges here, the major colleges that are playing, Florida State, University of Florida, and Miami, to fill their stadiums to capacity. And so you have to ask yourself, what is the end game? What is it that the DeSantises of the world and the Trumps of the world really want when you realize that there are people suffering and dying? I just lost another friend this week from the disease. All of us know people, family members or friends who have died from this disease. And yet there is a whole party that seems to be tone deaf to not only their deaths, as well as the incidents arising more and more, but also have no concern at all about where that is heading. And so that's why the whole narrative this past week of he's sick, he's got a miracle drug, a cure, he actually has followers who are believing that he has, gone through this and he is clean. He won't release, again, his medical records to let us know when was the last time he tested positive. Tom, you just said it earlier about Lindsey Graham. Graham won't even take a test and what have you. So what is it that you're hiding? I don't know, but it is madness. And the only way to stop the madness across the country is to get out and vote over the next 3 weeks and make a blue wave hit this country. Because, again, I just don't trust Republicans in our individual states and across the country to do the right thing about stopping this dreaded disease.
Now, Gretchen Whitmer was not the only female politician to be struck with right-wing tactics this week. Project Veritas, famously debunked organization, which ironically uses the Latin word for truth in their name, tried to frame Ilhan Omar as having paid someone to do basically a ballot stuffing, a falsified ballot initiative. And it was almost immediately debunked. And in fact, one of the people that they attempted to hire to do that said he was A, not doing anything illegal, B, turned down the $10,000 that they asked for, and C, was working within the rules and guidelines to make sure that people who had ballots who were unable to drop them off themselves were having their votes counted. And it speaks to an issue that Trump has not only with women in general, but women politicians in specific, and women politicians who are on the opposite side of the ledger from him. You have a situation where AOC +3, in which Ilhan Omar is counted along with Tlaib and Ayanna Pressley. And here he tries to go after her. She also happens to be a Muslim woman. She also happens to be an immigrant from Somalia, and he has ad nauseum struck at her time after time after time, trying to say that she is un-American in some way. But it leads us to the generalization of the tactics that the right wing is engaging in right now in order to try to push this election in their favor. 538 has noted that Joe Biden's lead, which was at about 7.1 points in their generalized aggregated tracker, has ballooned now to 11 points nationally. And that is a huge slide for the president. So we're only going to see an escalation of desperation over the next couple of weeks. And it is going to be difficult to imagine a scenario in which mobilized terrorist groups, let's please not call them militias. Militias should be reserved for people who are interested in defending the country, even if they're not an official part of the National Guard. These organized terrorist groups across the country are preparing themselves to jump into the fray. He's asking these people to be poll watchers. He is asking them to be ready. He is asking them to stand by. Joy, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I want to talk about words. I want to talk about what they mean and the power that they have. So, Bernadette Garcia said that, are they really willing to lay down their lives, put their lives on the line for Trump? And you just said militia is a group that is defending the country. These people believe that they are defending their country on the word of their sitting president. They really do think they're right. You got to remember, this is not the first time this country has fought a war that half the country was on some BS, right? This is not the first time that they have, they staged a coup in South Carolina after Reconstruction. They murdered thousands of people just to stop them from voting again. And I really do believe that lost cause of the South has never gone away. It's like, don't call it a comeback. Racism has been here for years, so they are doing what they believe, and belief doesn't have to be rational. The beliefs do not have to make sense. They don't even have to align with what you say in the public. It's what you feel in your heart. It's what you feel in your bones. And they really do think they're right. And that's what makes them so dangerous. This is their jihad. You see what I mean? We call them domestic terrorists. And, we understand conceptually what a jihad is. I'm going to put my life on the line. I'm going to run out. They may not throw a bullet in defense of what their version of the country is, but they have numbers. They really do. And that's the dangerous part. And they don't have, it's not like in the Civil War where you had this front and that front coming at each other. You got pockets of guerrilla warfare all over the country. And it's going to be hard to find them. They're interspersed through legal system, justice system, education, everywhere. It's systemic racism is part and parcel of all of this. You can't just say it's that group over there. It could be your cousin, well, not our cousins, but you know what I mean. And so
I don't know. We've got
everywhere.
Right.
Well, and you talked about the systemic nature, which famously Mike Pence denied. And yet the country was struck with yet another murder of a Black man who was unarmed, who was nonviolent. And that brother's name is Jonathan Price. Jonathan Price was a person who was attempting to break up a domestic disturbance at a gas station, apparently probably owing to his large muscular stature, was able to quiet things down just as the police were showing up. He was a strong supporter of police, had made a lot of statements on his Facebook, but unfortunately, it appears that none of those statements made it to the police ledger to indicate that he was one of the good ones. Because upon the arrival of the police officer, apparently he offered his hand to the police officer, offered to explain what was going on. He was tased. And after he was tased, he was shot at least 3 times and murdered. Now, the interesting thing is, apparently, because some cops knew he was a pro-cop black man, almost immediately that officer was arrested and has been charged with his murder, which is quite a different turn of events from every other Black Lives Matter incident. And some people are claiming that the tragedy in some way is somewhat muted because of his political leanings. But Sharon, what do you... Yeah, he's still dead. He is still dead. Sharon, before Joy jumps in, what do you have to say about this mania with the public taking a look at black men, but also black men feeling that respectability politics is in some way a shield for the systemic racism that governs our country today?
I can't speak to his politics because the brother is dead. What I can speak to is, even when we show up and try to be an ally, even when we show up and try to defend them, even when we on this side and we will look at those people, and before they're murdered, we'd call them a sellout. The other word that you don't like us calling people, Tomas. And when we totally blaze them, and they stand up and they're like, but right is right, and then they're mowed down just for being who we are, beautiful black people. I want us to be raising up hell and watch them. I want that dude to get the electric chair, because I can't parse black people. Herman Cain, the brother is dead. I don't have to even agree with you. I cannot stand you. But if you are getting mowed down simply because you look like me, your consequence, you ain't gonna have the village. You ain't gonna have the George Floyd movement. That's your bad. But you already been judged. You're dead. When are we gonna stop white people from killing us? That's what the fucking issue is. These fuckers think that they have a right to just fucking kill us. That's some bullshit.
Indeed. I think that we have come to a place in the country where we're seeing that sort of energy being manifested. It is still going on. I remember that when George Floyd was murdered, and I put myself through the trauma of watching that entire video because I wanted to see it, and the spark that it lit in this country, the protests that continue today, the escalation of the protests as we continue to see unarmed, innocent black people murdered since George Floyd, the Dave Chappelle special about George Floyd, all of these things that have continued to progress, and still no one seems to learn. And I saw a post today that said, when police officers are arrested immediately and convicted and thrown in jail, that's going to be the first time that they realize that there are actual consequences. And we had Daniel Cameron, who it is now apparent with the release of the grand jury testimony, literally lied both to the grand jury and certainly to the public at large about what the grand jury deliberations were, because the grand jury jurors were saying, well, he told us we couldn't charge them. And this expert, the attorney general of the entire Commonwealth of Kentucky, said, well, they're a grand jury, they can charge whatever they want. But these aren't experts. these aren't lawyers. These aren't people who have any sort of professional adjudication in the process of the law. They're doing mostly what they have been told. Yeah. So the idea that, you know, it's all good, they can act against me if they choose to, that's not a realistic outcome. They are looking to be led. They are looking to be told what is the lawful thing to do. And Daniel Cameron now is calling for the pulling back of those grand jury testimonies, which is, you know, a moot point now because it's already out in the world. Joy, as we segue into our next segment, which is about Breonna Taylor and what is going on with her case, I want to turn the floor over to you because you have a solid interpretation of both what is going on in the country and the society at large as it pertains to Black women.
So here's the thing. You know, Malcolm X said it best, you know, the least protected person in America is a Black woman. And we see it over and over again. We see it not only in the senseless deaths of people like Sandra Bland and Breonna Taylor, we see it in the way Megan Thee Stallion was treated after she was shot and had to prove that she was shot and had to fight for the person that everybody knew shot her to be charged. You know, and it was not always about the race of the person doing the violence. It's about the race of the person that is the victim, because some people, dependent on their race and gender, are not allowed to be victims. You know, we see it all the time with Black men. You know, Trayvon Martin was vilified for wearing a hoodie. It's cold outside. It's raining. What am I supposed to wear? You know, we see men coming out of the airport. There was an athlete coming out of the airport with a suit on, knocked to the ground, arrested, everything. Why? Because they thought he fit the profile of a criminal. Why? Because his skin is Black. And that's all it is. No Black person is safe in this country. And that's the problem. It doesn't matter what you do, because when they're shooting you in that moment, they don't see your degrees. They don't see your good works in the community. They don't see how you supported them across your social media. They see dark skin. And they have been trained, they've been conditioned. This whole country has led them to believe, going back again 400 years, Black skin is dangerous. It doesn't matter the package, it's the wrapping that makes it dangerous. Every Black person is potentially a bomb. Shoot it. You know, at one point they were even using Black mugshots on the shooting range, training cops in Florida. It goes deep. And that muscle memory has caused a lot of people to be shot. Why? Black skin. I don't know. I don't even know why I shot you. You know, and so this goes on and on. And I want to leave the four of us up for a second, because I want to talk about the face you see on Sharon. That is beyond anger. That is an accumulation of, I'm so sick of this bullshit. It's beyond tired. You know what I'm saying? It is beyond, it's beyond trying to cope. It's beyond trying to pull you along as you resist learning. It's beyond trying to fight the ignorance. I had up to here. I've had it. You know, so I understood it. Everything she's saying. And you think about the way Kamala Harris was treated. You know, she's a monster. You know, for what? For standing up for herself? You know, the very idea of stand your ground is only for white men. Why is that? You know, think about, again, going back to Breonna Taylor's case. You can be in your own apartment wondering who is breaking into your place, fire a warning shot, and the people who broke in are nothing. Nothing happens to them because you're Black. Meanwhile, you've got two crazy white people in St. Louis brandishing firearms, people that are not even on their property, and being hailed as heroes. This is what we talk about with cognitive dissonance. This is what we mean when we say there's two sets of rules. This is what we say when we mean when we say we don't have equal protection under the law. And it goes deep. It's so much. Every single institution in the United States sees dark skin as disposable.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is good to say, I think it's important to say that St. Louis couple has been charged. So they didn't slip loose of justice just yet. They were charged, and given who is in charge in St. Louis, despite the fact that they were brought on to the RNC, that was a lifetime ago at this point. I think their 15 minutes of white supremacist protection has probably faded off. So it remains to be seen whether or not they will end up convicted of those crimes. And I think another thing that is critical that happened this week in the Breonna Taylor case is that the body cam footage of the SWAT team that arrived in the aftermath of the shooting has been released. And among the things that it revealed was that, again, you don't hear anything about an officer being shot. Let's take care of this wounded guy. Still do not hear that. And the other thing is that the SWAT team did, in fact, check to see what the state of Breonna Taylor was. But of course, by the time they got there, she had already passed on. And the callous comment that they made after checking her vitals were, she's done. And so that speaks exactly, I think, to what you were saying, Joy, in terms of that skin making you a target, the melanin that is a natural consequence of our birth, branding us with a mark from which we can never escape. And even were we to try to escape, it wouldn't necessarily protect us from the state-sponsored anti-Black violence that is a part of the day-to-day existence of people in this country. We have Mark Stepney, who is a good friend. He says that the St. Louis couple got another charge of tampering with the guns, but the governor says he will pardon them if they are convicted. So the system working for the people that the system was designed to protect yet again. You made a comment, Joy, and Sharon, I want you to weigh in on this if you're ready. I'm not going to say the name of the person who did the tweet, and I'm not going to comment on the nature of the content of the tweet because it was despicable. It's enough to say that he had some very disparaging things to say about Senator Kamala Harris, and he thought that his whiteness and his proximity to white right-wing media was going to be enough to protect him. But Fox News let him know categorically, in no uncertain terms, that you stepped in it this time, bro, and you are done. Sharon, what do you feel about that disrespect, what it says about the state of white men and Black women? Because there was a lot of talk about what Black women have to face, and Mike Pence was emblematic of that. How do you feel both about the comment and the treatment that he has received now that he has been booted from his media perch?
I'm in a fog. So I want to just step back. I'm just kind of sitting here simply because this is part of the reason the other part of the reason I stay in the house. The other part of the reason is I have a 6-year-old boy that for the last 3 years, every time a Black man gets killed, all I keep thinking about is getting him to teenage years and that being him. And the mad woman y'all saw a few minutes will be the same mad woman times 5,000 if that was my child. So it's hard to calm down right now. I was triggered. So I appreciate the grace that you all gave me, but I'm still triggered. And the level of disrespect of white people on every level can set me off. And so I'm trying to allow my child to have a mother for as long as God will have me here without me causing myself to eliminate myself. I'm just so done with these people, and justice has got to be served. Justice has got to be served because they are one half of a step away from eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It's just, there's not that much savage in us that can be sustained as that sister that really jumped off on that video to say, what was it? She was like, you better be glad that,
that all we want is justice and not revenge.
Exactly. Because I just saw black when we talked about the brother, because I don't want to go down that lane and say he stood up for cops and we shouldn't fight for him. That, he was one of the ones that was co-opted, believe what, he was Django'd. Okay, so and there's plenty of us like that. But at the end of the day, he was a beautiful black man that was actually trying to do good and was exterminated like a dirty dog. And these mofos around here trying to kidnap people, they couldn't go to the gym. So the inequity is that's not even a big enough word. Injustice is not a big enough word. And, we get really offended because of a lot of our lack of education when that whole movement talking about we not our ancestors. Look, I'm Nat motherfucking Turner. Okay? So I wear my motherfucking ancestry proud. Mm-hmm. So, but I know this system is not designed for me.
Right.
So all I'm trying to do is take care of my child. Mm-hmm. Until this system can be repaired. Or better yet, I might move out this motherfucking country. Because at this point, the lack of civility and humanity for our people, we are experiencing firsthand. We need to buck up and become our ancestors. Because they did all of this for us. And the shit is going backwards. And we better understand what it takes to stay the course. It's not just about voting. Like I said, you better vote. And then especially if they come in our neighborhoods, then I'm out the house. Period.
I'm going to tell you right now, I am 45% attitude and 55% smoke. You don't want none of this. I'm not going to start it, but I will finish it. My daddy taught me, just like Beyonce, how to shoot. And I don't want that. I don't want to have to think about it. I don't want to have to have a go bag, to have a plan to figure out how I'm going to get through Florida and get out of this country if I can't fly. But I've thought about all of it because I see over and over again, I see the violence headed my way. It's why I always live in the city. It's why I always live amongst my people, because I do know that come through West End if you want to. Come through 3rd Ward and 5th Ward, Houston, if you want to, son. And if you can get through all that, I'm still here. And I still have that smoke for you, sir. But I don't want to have to do it. But I also will not lay down and give my life to prove a point to our silent allies that we were right all along. I'm not going to do that.
Well, I want to make 2 quick points. One, Sharon talked about repairing, and that's not the issue for me. You can't repair something that was never designed to work for us. We need to recreate. We need to tear down what was and replace something that the Republicans have been promising to do with the Affordable Care Act, which they have never done. We do need to actually replace the structure so that we can get our due and we can be represented as full citizens in this country. The other thing...
We're going to have to go back to segregation to do that, sweetheart. We're going to have to go back to segregation for that.
Well, but segregation wasn't even the choice because they sat there and burned down Tulsa. They burned down Rosewood. It's got to be torn down and fixed. And
they're not going to burn it down again?
Well,
I'm agreeing with you, but we are not the majority of their country. So tearing down what? That they won't turn around and burn it down. So I'm not joking when I said we educated enough now. We know how to grow our own fucking crops. We know how to run our own corporations. We may not have to use the word segregation, but I'm all about building our neighborhoods, building it back up.
Yeah, well, we have groups of Black people who have been buying up tracts of land. I think probably all of you have seen those posts of 20 families getting together to buy hundreds of acres, and they are actually building settlements, again, in the style of Rosewood, where they can police themselves, where they can feel comfortable and confident in the ownership of their own land so that they don't have to worry about some of the issues that still plague us today. I think a part of this, and it speaks back to what you were saying, Joy, and Sharon, what you alluded to about the fear of revenge. The white people who are concerned about Black Lives Matter are concerned that Black people, were they to come into power, would treat them the way they have treated us. That's their concern. Not that they just scared in general. They know if Black people had the opportunity, or their belief is that if Black people had the opportunity, they would do to us what they have been doing to us in this country for decades. Chuck, take it.
The problem, though, is that, like Chuck D, the rapper, said many years ago on Black Steel in the Hour of Chaos, I'll give them a chance because I'm civilized. The majority of us are civilized. We always have been civilized. We do not operate from the eye for an eye type of perspective. If we did, there would have been bloodshed and carnage on a mass level long time ago. Even if it turned into the extinction of the race, we just simply are not those type of people. So, for example, when I have seen instances in which someone who is white has been brutalized by the police, that bothers me too, because the main issue to me is that the police are not there to harass and kill. They are there to protect and serve. And when they don't do that, they are abrogating the contract that they implicitly sign and have once it is they take the oath of being an officer. And so it never has been, at least from my perspective, about racial retribution. It's about equal justice under the law. And that has been an illusory concept since it was first uttered when it comes to Black people. And that is the thing that continues to beguile me. Like when I look at and I say this almost every show, when I look at the posters from the 1920s on through to the 2020s now, it is the same thing. We want people to stop killing us. We want people to stop harassing us. We want that when people do kill and harass us, for them to have to serve time and go through the processes the same way that we do. And that is where we continue to have a problem. And sisters, listen, I appreciate the frank level of conversation that we've gotten into. This show is great on many levels. You all have no idea how often I get contacted. I know Tom gets contacted from people who are watching. We really are building something here. And I'm grateful for that. And Tom and I are going to have a talk about letting you two come on as full-fledged partners here and what have you. You know, whether the frat is going to have to turn into, what's it when it's a hybrid, frat and sorority, so to speak, since all this crimson and cream is on the screen, right? But I digress. The point being is that this is a frustrating topic. It's frustrating for all of us. For sisters, I know it is for you all. I know it is for Tom. I know it is for me. You know, when you are a large male, Tom and I are both very large males. When you, no matter how articulate you are, you both hit on the topic of respectability politics. It does not matter. It does not matter if you can use polysyllabic SAT words like each of us can on this show. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're driving in a Mercedes, if you're driving in a Lexus, a Honda, whatever it is that you drive, you can live in the nicest neighborhood and you can still wind up a hashtag in this country like Jonathan did last week, simply because they refuse to see the humanity. And so like Tom was saying, for the first time in my life, and one of my cousins, who's a professor in history up at Tennessee State University, Dr. Lee Williams, he's traced our ancestry back on that side of my family to the 18th century. A slave that was bought in Charleston, South Carolina, and then eventually migrated down through Savannah on over to Camilla, where our family lived ever since, for the most part. And when you stop and you realize that how many generations of the Williams family have lived and helped to build this country. And for the first time in my life this year, I have actively thought about leaving America. And I don't know whether that will come to fruition or not, but I would be a fool not to think of it, because again, anytime you can live in a very nice neighborhood and drive very nice automobiles, and yet you are still constricted, as I am, to have to walk during daylight hours when I've been on my walking journey because of fear that if I walk when it is dusk or when it is still pitch black outside, someone may mistake me for a burglar or a mugger and I get shot. That is problematic. And I don't know how that ends. You can't legislate people to love you. Either they have it in them and they are civilized, like I said at the top, or they are not. And there are too many of our white brothers and sisters who are not civilized in this country. It's not in them and it never will be. And so with that, the question is, do you fight or do you take flight? I don't know the answer to that, but at this point, all options are on the table, because I know that, like each of you on this panel, I am sick and tired of it.
Joy, I'm going to give you a chance now to offer your closing comments as we go around the table. This has been quite an episode. We've tackled a lot of topics. This country has a long way to go. So, Chuck has spoken his piece. Let's turn to you.
Chuck, you mentioned something about, the reach of this show. And I know that there are a lot of white people that watch this show and follow you. And so it's the white people I want to speak to right now. You see 4 highly educated Black people sitting here telling you with all the passion in their bloodstream that we have a problem, and that even we, in all of our creature comforts and luxuries, are afraid for our lives. It's not about, is Chuck gonna be okay? It's about, are Black people gonna be okay? So I want you white people that are watching this show, I want you to think about the fact that it's not enough. It's not enough to just say, well, I know Chuck and I know Tom and Joy seems nice and I want them to be safe. And I'm going to, if something happens, I'll let Chuck come to my house. We're talking about all Black people, because here's the thing. The other folks, your friends, your family members, they don't know Chuck. And when they see Chuck, they see a big Black man that has to die because he looks scary. I need the white people watching this show to get your friends, get your relatives, get your neighbors to understand that Black people, not just Chuck, Black people aren't scary, because to everyone that doesn't know Chuck, he's just a dangerous Black man in the street. And that's the persona, that's the image that we have got to kill. That's what needs to die, is the idea that Black people are big and scary, that Black skin is automatically dangerous if you don't know them. We are not the good ones. We're just regular people. We're not special. And if you knew more Black people, if your friends knew more Black people, they would understand that it doesn't have to be exemplary to get home. It's something that Dave Chappelle talked about in his special. Shouldn't have to be famous just to make it home at night. And so I urge all of you to not only watch this show, but listen to all the Black people across all media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, et cetera, that are saying this is a problem. We really are at a precipice of whether we become a fascist police state where the potential extermination of Black people as insurgents is a possibility, or we do all really learn to get along. That is in your hands.
Sharon? Can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Sharon. No, can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know what happened. As I've told y'all before, I could walk out my front door and I could see a Trump sign. Okay. I am considered a suburbanite. I could walk my son to his elementary school around the corner. However, I get up and I drive 20 minutes to the other side of town, to the south side of town, at his all-Black prep school, especially during COVID and Black Lives Matter. Like, we have choices. I literally drove around last week all over the south side, Chuck, saying, maybe I'll build a house next door to Daryl Parks. I'm going through it.
Yeah.
I'm going through it. And we managed to get a lot of laws on the book, but I'm absolutely not interested in assimilating. I works for nobody. I owns plenty of property on the south side. And I got my name on a building. But I wake up every day and I don't feel safe. And I have to look outside and say, why the fuck do I live around these people? I don't have nothing to prove. I am not trying to integrate in their space. I am my own woman. I own my own shit. I don't need nothing from them. I'm so Tyler Perry right now. I gets it. I gets it, Brother Perry. I gets it. I'm going to join you. And it's really, and we went to the HBCUs. It's like, I'm not trying, I got my 40 acres and I'm really new. I don't need shit from these people. So when I even think about what we are fighting for, I'm fighting for the ability to continue having my motherfucking own. I am tired of these people. I am tired of the need for them to understand us. You ain't got to understand me. Just stay the fuck out of my way.
Can I live? Can I breathe?
And please, people, go vote.
Yes.
Because everything I just said, the good thing about Joe Biden, who I actually know personally,
right,
is that you ain't gonna get tear gassed outside the White House. And we keep cutting up the way we cutting up, we will get invited in and we will get what we need. That is what they really fear. So if you want to own your power, if you really want to understand what owning your power means, start with the vote. Some of the rest of us will take care of everything else. Just go vote. Get this satanic, supremacist, scumbag thug living for his daddy's approval man out of our way. That's because people took their eye off the prize. They took their eye off of what freedom actually is. Freedom is not about getting all your way. Freedom is about creating a way that you don't have to ask permission to do what the fuck you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what liberation is. You ain't got to hit nobody over the head. You ain't got to ask them for no fucking crumbs. Freedom is about getting these motherfuckers off our neck and out our fucking way.
I would like to close with a slightly different.
Chuck get to close?
Well, Chuck did lead the close, but if he wants to say something else, I'm glad to have him.
I'm sorry. I'm dizzy.
It's all good. And number one, I want to say I love you all, each of you on this show, and I love everybody who is paying attention and watching us week in and week out. And I also want to extend that love to my big brother, Tom Cunningham, who just celebrated the anniversary of his 21st birthday. So happy birthday.
Oh,
Tom.
wow.
Yeah.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, man. And with that, Nuke, go ahead and take us out.
So I'd like to spend a few moments talking about what change actually means. There were celebrities talking about pocketing your vote, making them understand what your power is. And that person is a clown, so I'm not going to speak his name. But that is absolutely the wrong way to go about it. The vote is your chance to exercise influence. The vote is your opportunity to get the person into office who you feel can represent your interests. You don't get to represent your interests by withholding your vote. You've got to get somebody in the position who will listen. And change is possible. It is indeed possible. This week at Michelle Obama's alma mater, Princeton University, they have taken the name of a former president, Woodrow Wilson, off of a building and replaced it with the name of Mellody Hobson, a Black woman. Now, granted, she is a wealthy Black woman. She is a wealthy Black woman married to a wealthy white man. But she has made a name for herself at the upper echelons of finance in this country. And the very fact that her alma mater and Michelle Obama's alma mater have taken the step of breaking the chain of white supremacy by removing an inveterate racist who fell so ill that his wife basically had to manage his last year in office is a step in the right direction. And it demonstrates what power can do and how power can be exercised. This is an Ivy League institution, one of the most august institutions in our country. And this Black woman's name has knocked off Woodrow Wilson's. That means something. It doesn't mean as much as what Sharon is suggesting in terms of owning our own, making places of our own, concentrating our efforts to think about and protect our own. But it is a sample of what we can do when we exercise our power and our ability to effect change in this country. It starts with the vote, but it does not end with the vote. You've got to take the time to put in the work, to be a part of committees, to be a part of organizations and commissions, to go to water board, to go to police commission meetings, to go to city council meetings, to go to county meetings, to hold your state and local representatives accountable for their actions and make sure that you are getting what it is that you want. Daniel Cameron did not spring forth from a scallop shell. He was voted into office. And if he was voted in, as St. Louis showed us, he can be voted out. And that is why your vote is so important. Take it from me, a person who has never missed a vote since I got the first chance to vote, who is taking his daughter with him to the polls to vote for her first time this year. Take it from Shaquille O'Neal, who finally got his act together and decided that he was going to vote for the very first time in his life this year. The vote is important. There is nothing that you can do from a governmental level without being a part of the game. Protest without votest means very, very little. And so with that, I want to thank, as always, our wonderful roundtable of excellent thinkers, Chuck Hobbs, Joy Stevens, the ever passionate and definitely not old Sharon Lettman-Hicks. And so with that, I want to say this has been Steel Sharpens Steel. Like our page on Facebook, definitely spread the news, invite people to watch, and you, our audience, providing us with so many wonderful comments. We love your feedback. We love everything that you are offering up to us, and we hope you will continue to do it week after week. And so with that, here's that beautiful bean footage.